Balancing my full-time job at Google and my master's in literature and arts at the University of Oxford has meant that I've developed some productivity hacks, and that's what I would like to share with you today. For those that don't know, hi, my name is Cait and I am a full-time Google employee in legal and compliance, and I am also a part-time master's student at the University of Oxford through the continuing education department in literature and arts. And my story is that in the middle of COVID, I decided to pursue my passion for literature and go back to school. And that's what I have been working towards ever since. Balancing between work and studying can be very, very taxing, and I have spoken a lot about this recently on my channel, so please feel free to go ahead and subscribe so that you can see how this journey kind of continues as I work and study and attempt to make something of my YouTube career as well. But I thought I would break this video down into 3 parts effectively. The first part is my desk setup, and here I'll talk about how I managed to keep both of my productivity stations open during the day so that I am keeping an eye on everything that's going on. It also allows me to run the Accepted Society study sessions, and so I'll talk through all of that and I will let you know what I use, what technology I use, particularly when I'm going through to my residencies. In the second part of the video, I will talk about some of the apps that I use to make sure that I am staying organized and structured and on top of everything that I need to. And the apps that I will talk about are ones that I use for completing my readings, ones that I use for my lecture notes and for my organization, and others that I will use when I am planning out an essay, for example, or managing my calendar, which is a really big thing that I have to do. The third part of the video, and arguably the most important part of this video, I'm going to talk about things that I do in order to balance myself. So balance my calendar, for instance, with my planner, or how I know that I need to take a break and what I do in order to decompress myself and rest so that I can appear as my most productive self again. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. Alright friends, I thought that I would just voice over this part of the video, which is my desk setup. So as you can see here, I technically have 2 stations. I have my Google workstation, which is off to the left, and then my personal / university / accepted work, which is off to the right. Each of the screens that I have here, I've got 2 screens. The one on the left is connected to my work laptop. This is a MacBook that was provided to me by my work and which I use to do all of my work on, my emails, my meetings, everything. The screen is really, really helpful when I am reviewing documents or spreadsheets or things like that, but actually I am quite comfortable just working off of my laptop when it comes to my work, but the screen is really, really helpful. The second screen is connected to my Mac Mini. This is the M2 Pro Mac Mini that I have, and I use this for basically everything that is university focused and running the Accepted Society study sessions. So as you can see, I have a little Logitech camera that sits on top of this screen that I use to run the study sessions. And I also have it connected to a Logitech keyboard and mouse. This keyboard and mouse is really, really helpful. It can connect to both my work laptop and to the Mac as well as to my iPad, which I'll talk about in a second. I do find having this keyboard and mouse incredibly helpful to be able to maintain my seating position on my desk so that I'm not straining to use the keyboard on my MacBook for work or shifting around too much. So I do find it very, very helpful to be able to switch between the work laptop and between my personal Mac. I decided to get myself a Mac Mini in order to help me with the video editing process. So before I got the Mac Mini, I was just using my iPad for university, and I've got the 12.9 inch iPad Pro. It's the 5th generation iPad Pro, and if I was just doing my university work, like my research, writing assignments, all that kind of stuff, this iPad would be perfect. I don't feel like I would need a laptop or anything like that. I can do everything on my iPad, and my iPad is what comes with me when I'm going to my residency weeks in Oxford. However, the Mac Mini was essential for my video editing. I could not sufficiently edit videos on my iPad Pro at the time. This was before Final Cut Pro had come out onto the iPad. But with focusing on YouTube and Accepted Society, having the Mac Mini stationed at my desk all the time is incredibly helpful. So as I mentioned, my iPad Pro is actually the winning piece of technology, and possibly the only piece of technology that I would recommend for students, because it has the same capability essentially as a laptop, but it is incredibly portable. And with the Apple Pencil for highlighting my readings and writing out notes that I need while I am on the residency weeks. And I just take this, I don't need anything else. I can access everything that I need to access on my iPad. Now I can even run study sessions from the iPad using the updates that Zoom has provided. So I even feel like I don't really need the Mac Mini, but the Mac Mini is incredibly helpful when it comes to video editing. The processing power just makes such a difference. A couple other things that I'll mention that you will see on my desk. So I do have a Blue Yeti microphone that I'm currently using for this voiceover. I also have my physical planners and my journals, which are held close. I have my glasses, and I have my pen stands, which are from a local Irish shop here, and the pens are also from the local Irish shop, and they are refillable. So I will leave the link to those in the description box below. And you always got to have a candle for some ambiance. So candle, water bottle, glasses, pens, all ancillary but absolutely essential. So this leads me quite nicely into talking about the apps that I use to maintain my productivity. And in order for me to do this, I am still going to voiceover, but I'm going to jump to screen recording. The first app that I want to talk about, which is the bread and butter of my productivity, is Notion. I started using Notion, I think, about a year and a half ago when I was doing my undergrad certificate, and it has completely changed my life. I have an academic dashboard which I use as my main focus for my academic side. So I have a couple of things in here, such as like my perfect productivity weeks, and as you can see, I have time blocked this and color coded it. But what I wanted to actually highlight here is my most used pages on my academic dashboard, and those are these pages here, and I will talk through them now. In my classes page over here, I have divided out my masters into my classes or my courses that I have. In those, I have my core courses. These are my lecture notes that I take as I'm going through the core courses. I am a big fan of a bullet pointed or a logical progression set of notes. So this kind of note-taking system really works for me. And what I do like about Notion, particularly as I'm doing a master's in literature and arts, is that I can bring in examples of portraits in here, as well as websites and things to that effect. So that's an example of some of the lecture notes that I have brought in for my core courses. I have 2 sets of core courses, as you can see here. One which we're currently underway is our British culture in a global context, and then we've got our dissertation planning core course, which will start, I think, at the end of this year. But what I've also included here is our residency weeks. So we've got our Michaelmas residency was one that it was our first residency week. What I've pulled in here is our timetable for that residency week. And I have pulled in all the seminar sessions in here. And in each of these seminar sessions, I've also just pulled in some lecture notes, for example. So this I find incredibly helpful to keep everything together. What I wanted to highlight here, for example, is in one of the Michaelmas residencies when we were talking about humanitarian empire. I've highlighted the text red, and the reason that I've done that is because I am going to transcribe this question into my essay questions page, and I'll show you guys that in a minute. But essentially, this is where I start to identify gaps in the research and the literature. So here is the same for the Hillary residency week that we just completed. I took 2 seminars, Tudor Monarchy and History of Ideas, Sovereignty and Power in Reformation Britain. And as I said, the way that I've kind of done this is to pull in my notes from when I do my reading, for example. So here I have a link to GoodNotes, which I'll talk about in a second. And that's because I would have read this in my GoodNotes app, and you can see my highlighted notes from GoodNotes and where I have made little annotations in the reading itself. So sometimes I just pull in the GoodNotes reference right here, but I'll talk about GoodNotes in a second. So essentially, as I was saying, what I do with my lecture notes is that I will do the readings in preparation for the seminars. I will pull the notes in from the reading that I do, any questions that I might have, and then when we're actually in the seminar, I will supplement those readings with the notes from the seminar itself. And then it keeps everything together, and I am able to easily discern where there are gaps in the literature, gaps in the research, or parts that I might want to write on. And that leads me into my essay ideas tab. Now, this page is something that I'm incredibly proud of, because I have found the benefits of this essay ideas tab or research ideas tab. So every time that I identify an area that I would like to research more, or a gap in the literature, or essentially whenever my lecturer or tutor says this hasn't been researched enough and would be interesting to look at, and I find it interesting to look at, then I will write a little note to myself in this essay ideas tab, and I will use this when I am deciding what to write my research papers on. So for example, my last research paper, essentially this built itself out so much to the point that this became the foundation for my essay that I wrote and that I submitted in the last month. As you can see, I started pulling in a whole lot of references. I even had subsequent notes in here from readings that I did, where I started to identify that this was something that I wanted to write on and that I could research. But what I wanted to show you here, for example, is how something like this page, or this page on Mary Seacole, which was my other research essay, how these pages then diverge themselves to become essays. But before I do any of that, the other thing that I just want to flag up on my Notion template is my structures and deadlines tab. essentially what I do here is I have the assignment due dates here, and this just, it allows me to keep everything organized. But the most important thing, which I've really loved and which has subsequently moved into the actual Notion calendar section, which I'll talk about in a bit, is my term dates calendar. And you can now open this in Calendar, so this is very helpful. The Notion calendar pulls my calendars from my personal calendar and my accepted society calendar, so I am actually able to see everything in a week sort of form. So you can see that here. And this has been really helpful as I pull things into my day planner, which I will show you in section 3 of this video. So as I mentioned, I use the essay planning tab to create my essays, but how I do that is using the Scrintle app. And if you guys have not used Scrintle or heard about Scrintle, I will leave a video link in the corner here. Scrintle is absolutely fantastic. It's essentially a mind mapping app, but you are able to like build out ideas really nicely. And where it works super duper well for me is in planning out the structure of my essays. So for example, I started thinking about tutor governance when I was doing my readings for my residency weeks. I kind of had the idea for my research assignment, and this is essentially how my Scrintle board started to develop. So these were my sections of my assignments that I pulled in together. I highlighted key themes. What was really just helpful for me with this was being able to summarize and pull in exactly what I wanted to refer to in each section and plan it out from start to finish, so that when it came to writing, it was a lot easier to kind of collate all those thoughts and just write them out rather than like scrambling for references or things like that. Where this structure is also really helpful is that I am able to then share the structure. So I actually PDF'd this original structure and sent it to my lecturer ahead of our tutorial so that she could see what my plan was, what sections I wanted to break my essay down into, and what my arguments were going to be. And so she was really able to kind of see what my thought process was and be able to provide input into that. So if you haven't checked out Scrintle, I absolutely will check it out. I will leave a link in the description box below, and I hope that you find it as helpful as I do. The last thing that I want to talk about is GoodNotes that I use on my iPad. So as I mentioned, I take my iPad with me whenever I go for my residency weeks, and I can get Notion and my emails and everything that I need on my iPad. So everything that you would have seen on the screen recording on my Mac Mini is what I can get onto my iPad here as well. So specifically, I wanted to show you my GoodNotes application here, because this is where I think the iPad really shines as opposed to like a MacBook or a laptop or something to that effect. When I have readings, articles, or anything like that, I am able to pull them into the GoodNotes app, and I can highlight and annotate my readings as I go through them. As I showed in the Notion template, I then transcribe these notes into Notion so that I collate them. But this first step of reading through notes, being able to highlight them with the Apple Pencil, being able to annotate them, is incredibly helpful. And I think this is what sets the iPad apart for me, is being able to do this with my readings, but not only being able to do this with my readings, but being able to do it where I take, like when I was in Oxford and I wasn't able to take a book with me because I was leaving Oxford and I couldn't take the book with me. But where I wanted to take pictures, I am able to then annotate those pictures with the Apple Pencil. So here, for example, I took a picture and I was able to highlight the parts of the passage in the book that I needed, and then also add a note to it using the Apple Pencil. Now, I know you don't have to have an iPad to do this. I know you can just as easy do this on your iPhone, or you can do it, you can even probably do it on a Mac or on a laptop. Where I like the iPad is being able to write out those notes for myself, even though in summarizing like my lecture notes or summarizing my readings, I type those out. When I am sitting down and I'm just brain dumping, I like to write things out, and that's why I find like GoodNotes and the iPad so helpful, because even if my notes are written out, I am able to search them. I'm able to always have them with me, even though it's just on this one device. So I also know that you can export citations from GoodNotes onto a referencing application like Zotero, and sometimes I do that, particularly when I am writing out an assignment, so that I have all my references in Zotero, and that interlinks with my Word document when I am writing out my assignments. So that's incredibly helpful. Overall, I do think that this whole system, the 3 apps that I use, Notion, Scrintle, and GoodNotes, all work really, really well together, and they all function together in a particular way, and they work together quite seamlessly. Having said that, however, as I mentioned, the reason I like GoodNotes is being able to write out and brain dump ideas and thoughts. And even though these apps are really, really fantastic, and the Notion calendar app is really fantastic for managing those calendars, I still prefer a physical planner and writing out and blocking out my time in a physical planner, and let me explain to you why in this next section. So I feel like I've spoken a lot about technology in this video, but what I wanted to talk about now in this 3rd section is my balancing and well-being. So as I've mentioned before, balancing work and studying and everything else can be incredibly taxing, and there is a lot to take into account on my day-to-day. I want to talk about the first thing that's most important to me, and this is my physical planner. This is from Golden Coil, and I will leave a link down in the description box below to the website. Golden Coil is a really, really fantastic planner because you can customize your planner. So I customize my planner in such a way that I can see my full week on my planner, and then it's got, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's got the times down the side. And what I am then able to do is time block my day based on my work commitments, based on my studying commitments, and based on what I need to do in that week. And it's incredibly helpful to be able to see that visually for me over a week. So what I tend to do is at the start of the week, I will sit down and I will look at my work calendar, I'll look at my personal calendar, my study calendar, my accepted calendar, and I will pull in everything that is on my calendar for me to do in that week. And it will look something like this. Now, this is a relatively easy week. As you can see, I don't have too many meetings that are situated in the calendar, but what I am actually able to do here is to determine the spaces that I have in my day to assign tasks. I also, as I said, when I'm running the study sessions, I try and assign tasks to do in those study sessions. And then I also have at the bottom here a weekly to do of things that I need to get done. These planners, as I say, they're incredibly helpful because I am actually able to customize how this planner is going to look and how it works for me, balancing out competing calendars and competing tasks all the time. And it's the visual element of me being able to see where my breaks are or where my extended periods of free time is. I absolutely can then utilize that. Having a planning system in place that works for you and is set up for you is absolutely fantastic. Does it work all of the time? No, it really does not. Because the one thing that I have learned from trying to balance work tasks and work priorities with my academic tasks and any other asks that come down the line, whether it be with accepted or with my own personal stuff, is that flexibility is key. I mean that when I do time block asks, I subconsciously also provide an alternative plan, a plan B, so that if I don't get these tasks done in that particular time, when can I get them done? And in order to not stress yourself out so significantly, to have this kind of plan B time block. I don't write this down, this is all kind of subconscious, but as I'm planning through my day, my week, my month, I am conscious of what asks are on my plate at the moment and what could possibly come down the line. And by being aware and conscious of that and building in some checks just in case something like that happens, like just the week before my assignment, my research essay was due for masters, we had a crisis ask at work and I had to be conscious of the fact that I needed to put in significant amount of hours at work and I couldn't put in that amount of hours into my assignment. So what did I do? What was my plan B? My plan B was to wake up in the morning before work and get work done. I think having that mindset of having a flexible time block schedule is something that has really helped me to deal with everything that goes on in my day-to-day life. And I cannot emphasize this enough because it is not talked about in productivity vlogs or things like that. It's always like, plan your days out in 15-minute increments. No, it's just not feasible. It's not feasible for anyone, in my opinion. Quite frankly, you cannot tell me that you were productive for 8 hours straight. I do not believe you. I will not believe you if you tell me that you are that kind of person. I certainly am not. And I feel like I have a system in place that actually works. What that flexible time blocking does for me is that it does allow me space to rest and to decompress. Now, these are the time blocks that I am very, very, very strict on. And that is the time blocks when I need to rest and decompress. With everything going on, I actually build in time to not work. And I think that is so, so important. Last year with work and masters and accepted and everything else and starting my YouTube channel, I burnt out so quickly. I cannot tell you the amount of times that I just was reduced to tears with the amount that was on my plate. And yet I did not want to give up anything. I did not want to reduce my workload because everything that I was doing was important to me. What that made me realize is that I needed to build time in myself to make sure that I rested, because it was so evident that even taking a night off, one night, meant that the next day I was far more productive than I would have been if I'd worked through the night. I try and safeguard my weekends as much as I can for my friends and family and doing things around the house that I kind of neglect during the week. And Friday night in particular is my decompression night. And building that time in has made such a massive difference. Now, there are weekends, quite honestly, there are weekends where I end up sleeping most of the weekend or lying on the couch most of the weekend, because I will listen to my body when it says that I need time to rest or time to recoup or time to decompress. All these tips, the physical planner, the flexible time blocking, and scheduling time to rest, these all work for me, and they have been working for me for the last 6 to 8 months. Will they absolutely 120% work for you? I don't know. You will have to evaluate your situation compared to mine and how your mind works compared to mine. But all I'm trying to say is, or all I'm trying to do is give you options and for you to see how I manage it, so that maybe there's a few things in here that you haven't necessarily thought of. Hopefully they will guide you in a way to finding the best method of balancing and being productive throughout the week. Another thing that I am very conscious of is setting time aside to journal, starting the day off like that, reflecting on the things that I am happy and grateful for, really just sets me up for a really, really good day. So all that to say is that is my jam-packed video on my productivity tips. I hope that you guys have found this useful. If you have any that you think will be beneficial to this community, please let me know what they are in the comments down below. And thank you for being here, and I'll see you guys in the next video.